Monday felt long. Somehow, the whole month vanished. You know the exact moment this happens. You open your calendar to check one date and discover that 3 weeks have quietly disappeared behind you. The meetings are there, the meals happened, you answered messages, folded clothes, watched something before bed, and went to sleep inside every one of those nights. But when you look back, the month feels thin, almost transparent. Then a memory from 10 years ago arrives in perfect color. One school trip, one unfamiliar street, one afternoon when the weather changed and everybody ran for cover. That single day seems to occupy more space in your mind than the last 6 Tuesdays combined. How can a day feel endless while a year disappears? The obvious answer is age. People say time speeds up because each year becomes a smaller fraction of your life. It sounds mathematical, which makes it satisfying. But fractions do not explain why one weekend away can feel larger in memory than a routine month, or why a boring afternoon crawls while you are inside it and vanishes the moment it is over. The stranger answer is that your brain does not experience time as one thing. It keeps at least two versions. There is time while it is happening, and there is time when you look back. Those two clocks can move in opposite directions. The psychologists Dinah Avni-Babad and Ilana Ritov tested this split across 4 experiments and 2 field studies. They compared routine experiences with experiences containing more variation, then asked people how long those stretches had lasted. Looking back, participants remembered routine periods as shorter. Less routine periods occupied more remembered time. But in one experiment, the researchers warned participants in advance that they would have to judge the duration. Now, people watched time while it passed. The pattern reversed. Routine felt longer in the moment. That is the entire paradox of your ordinary week. At 3 in the afternoon, nothing is changing, so your attention lands on time itself. Minutes become heavy. On Sunday night, nothing distinctive was stored, so the same week collapses behind you. Routine stretches experienced time and compresses remembered time. Your afternoon drags. Your year disappears. This is not because your brain failed to record your life. It recorded emails, routes, faces, rooms, and thousands of small decisions. The problem is organization. When too many days share the same cues, memory has trouble separating one from the next. The psychologist Jeffrey Zacks describes the mind as an event-segmentation system. Experience arrives as a continuous stream, but your brain does not save it like one unbroken security video. It divides the stream into events. A door opens. The goal changes. A new person enters. The music stops. Something violates the prediction your brain was using a second ago. That change becomes a boundary. And the boundary tells memory that one episode ended and another began. You can feel this machinery without a laboratory. Walk from one room into another and forget why you went there. The doorway is not magical. The context changed, so the mind updated its working model of what is happening. The old event was packed away a little too quickly, taking your intention with it. Yipu, Lucia Melloni, Charan Ranganath, and their colleagues tested the same boundary machinery with 36 pictures of ordinary objects. In one condition, a colored frame stayed constant. In another, the frame changed every 6 pictures, dividing the sequence into smaller events. Afterwards, participants had to decide which objects had appeared more recently. The color change did 2 things at once. It improved order memory for objects inside the same event, and it made order memory worse for objects separated by a boundary. The researchers built a model that explained the result by treating each boundary as a reset of temporal context. In plain English, a meaningful change gives memory a fresh page. Your routine week has pages, but many of them carry the same background. Same alarm, same ceiling, same route. Same screen positioned at the same distance from your face. The people may change what they say and the tasks may change what they demand, but the sensory frame remains remarkably stable. Memory receives Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday as 36 objects on one unchanging color. That is why you can remember what happened without remembering when. You know the conversation occurred, but you cannot tell whether it was this week or last week. You know you ate that meal, but the scene has no date attached. The memories are real. Their addresses overlap. And when you later ask how large the month was, your mind does not measure every minute again. It samples what can be retrieved. A month containing many distinct episodes offers many handles. A month containing repeated contexts offers a few handles attached to piles of similar material. The second month feels shorter, even if both contained exactly the same number of hours. Why would a mind built for survival store time this way? Because minutes were rarely the most useful unit in the world that built it. Change was. The anthropologist Evans-Pritchard saw this clearly in his fieldwork with the Nuer. He described a way of reckoning time through ecology and activity rather than through an abstract grid of identical hours. Parts of the day were tied to the cattle cycle, to milking, movement, heat, and the work that conditions made possible. Larger stretches were marked by seasonal changes. Time was not missing. It was attached to events. That system was precise about what mattered. An hour on a clock is the same length whether rain begins, cattle wander, food appears, or a stranger approaches. An event-based mind treats those moments as radically different because they require different predictions and different actions. The boundary is the information. Research with the Hadza of Tanzania gives a glimpse of how much changing context can fit inside an ordinary foraging day. In an 11-day study, evolutionary anthropologist Herman Pontzer, anthropologist Frank Marlowe, and their colleagues fitted Hadza adults with wearable tracking devices. Women traveled an average of 5.8 kilometers a day. Men averaged 11.4. They moved on foot through a landscape while gathering plants, digging tubers, hunting game, finding honey, returning to camp, and sharing what came back. That study measured movement and energy, not subjective time. But it anchors the environment that a human memory system had to handle. A daily journey covered changing terrain, uncertain outcomes, shifting company, weather, tracks, food patches, and the constant possibility that a prediction would fail. The route itself supplied boundaries. Modern routine removes many of those boundaries without removing the workload. You can now spend 8 demanding hours in one chair, looking through one rectangle, under one ceiling, while dozens of mentally separate tasks arrive through the same visual frame. Your attention works hard. Your memory receives almost no scene change. An ancestral day also had repetition. Fires had to be tended again. Food had to be found again. Children had to be watched again. The difference was not that every morning delivered an adventure. The difference was that repeated needs unfolded inside variable conditions, and those conditions forced the mind to keep updating its model of the world. That update had stakes. Missing a seasonal shift could mean looking for food where it no longer grew. Failing to notice a social change could mean trusting the wrong person during conflict. Treating a fresh animal track like yesterday's track could waste a day or put a hunter near danger. A brain that carved change into episodes could compare what happened before the boundary with what happened after it. That is useful learning. So your memory became sensitive to contrast, not because it wanted to make life feel long, but because contrast carried news. Sameness was compressed because sameness was already predicted. The system was built to spend its storage on the moment the pattern broke. Now place that system inside a modern year. January and February may have different names, but naming them does not make them different contexts. The same notification wakes you. The same commute carries you to the same building. Work changes. Yet it changes behind identical tabs. Lunch arrives near the same hour. Evening becomes another screen. Even rest can happen through the device used for work, in the chair used for work, beneath the light used for work. The calendar insists that clean boundaries are passing everywhere. New day, new week, new month. Your brain is less easily convinced. A number changing at midnight is not an event boundary if nothing in your predictions, surroundings, or behavior changed with it. This is why taking more photographs does not automatically solve the problem. A camera can produce 500 images of one undifferentiated context. The archive becomes larger while the remembered period stays thin. Storage is not the same as segmentation. A memory needs a feature that says this was not just another copy of yesterday. It is also why the answer is not constant excitement. A life built around chasing novelty would become exhausting, expensive, and strangely empty. Huge experiences are not required. The boundary experiment changed the color of a frame. What mattered was not intensity, it was a detectable difference in context. So what actually changes the size of a year? The shift is to give each week one deliberate first, not a bucket list, not a total reinvention of your routine. One small experience that has no identical copy in the previous week. A route you have never walked, a meal you have never made, a question you have never asked someone you already know. The content matters less than the clean signal it sends. This week contains an event that belongs only to this week. That first works in three directions at once. While it happens, prediction becomes less automatic, so attention returns to the scene. When it ends, the change creates a boundary around the episode. Later, the episode becomes a retrieval handle, something memory can use to separate the surrounding days from the weeks on either side. One first per week sounds almost too small to matter. That is exactly why it can survive contact with a real life. A year has 365 dates, but dates are labels supplied by a calendar. 52 deliberate firsts would give memory 52 boundaries it can actually detect. The number is not a guarantee that a year will feel exactly 52 units larger. Memory is not a filing system you can control with perfect precision. The point is structural. Instead of asking an ancient event-based mind to respect an abstract date, you give it the kind of marker it already knows how to use. Tonight, the next first can be small enough to fit inside the life already on the calendar. Its value does not come from being impressive. Nobody has to see it. Nothing has to be posted. The first only needs to interrupt prediction long enough for the mind to open a fresh page. That changes what you are trying to protect. You are not trying to slow the clock. A watched clock often moves more slowly already, and routine can make every minute louder. You are trying to make the week retrievable after it has passed. You are also not failing at life because recent years feel compressed. The compression is evidence that a capable memory system found too much of the environment predictable and stored it efficiently. The system is doing its job. It simply cannot know that the sameness it treats as old information was still your one irreplaceable life. The loss is not in the hours themselves. You lived them. You felt tired inside them, laughed inside them, solved problems inside them, and made choices that mattered. The loss happens later, when the mind reaches back and finds too few borders to hold all that living apart. Monday felt long. Somehow, the whole month vanished, not because time moved faster, but because memory had nowhere to place it. Give the next week one first, and the month has somewhere to stay.